Hey guys, Anthony, 4x4 Diesel. This is the 20,000 kilometre review. So this video, some people are going to like it, some people aren't. Some people are going to go, that's awesome, I'm going to go buy a new Prado. Some people are going to go, oh, that's not awesome, I'm certainly not going to go and buy a new Prado because of that. So there's two sides to the story. So I'm going to tell you the story, 20,000k review. So obviously the vehicle's done 20,000 Ks, a little bit of information, I've done quite a bit of highway driving. It's got a DPF fitted, you need to be aware of that. All new diesels from about 2015 have DPFs and they can be a problem depending on your driving style, and I recommend you avoid DPFs in general unless you're doing high kilometres and highway driving and you've got a quality brand vehicle with quality components like Toyota. Now, it doesn't mean Toyota's immune to problems with DPFs, and I'm certainly not the expert on the percentages of DPF problems or not. You've probably heard of a class action. I think they mainly seem to be the Hiluxes, that sort of thing, but again, I haven't chased that information. I can just tell you my experience. I have not had any DPF issues whatsoever. Okay, so I can tell you the vehicle, as I've said in other videos, you probably should check those as well. The DPF does burn approximately every 300 kilometres. Seems to be a lot of people that seem to know things in comments on Facebook and on the YouTube channel. You just need to be careful because every vehicle is different. There's people that have said, oh, you know, just go and get them to put it in customised mode. Now, what you've got to understand is the earlier ones, maybe a 15, 16, 17, you can do that. But with the later ones, I believe it's from about mid-2018 onwards, it's different software and you can't just put it in customised mode. It's not possible. So just be aware of that one. Believe me, I've done my homework to an extent, and I can tell you that is not only from me but from a Toyota dealer. You cannot put it in customised mode. This is a 2019 Prado GX. I would only recommend the GX because it's a lot cheaper. It's got everything you need, and we're going to get to that. That's probably what we'll get to now. Okay, so 20,000 Ks. The reason we went for the GX is I just personally think a Prado GXL is a bit overpriced for what it is. That's my personal choice, what I think, I suppose. There's cheaper vehicles out there, but then you do get sucked in because it is the Toyota thing, and I'll tell you straight, I still think Toyotas are the best vehicles. Okay, I think it's the best option out there. I mean value for money. When we say best, it's a pretty open word that can mean different things in different ways, but overall package, quality, value for money, reliability, fuel economy, all these sort of factors that come into it. The engineering, they are a quality vehicle. So how do you like the Prado so far, you ask? Well, a lot of people ask that. How do you like the new Prado? Well, I'm certainly not selling the old Prado. When I say the old Prado, we've got a 2008 120 Prado, and I love that, and there's a lot of things I like about that better. I suppose we've got to compare the pair a little bit, but understand we're comparing an old 120 Prado of the design that came out in Australia in 2003, even though it had the updated engine. It's still the same base design vehicle. This vehicle, the 150, I suppose it came out in 2009, but in 2019 it's still the same base vehicle. The main differences are only the transmission and the engine, and there's things I like about them and there's things I don't like about them. So how do you like the new vehicle? You still haven't got an answer? Well, I'm still talking, so I must be telling you something. We love the new vehicle. It's great. I mean, it's a brand new vehicle. Tell me something. This is the problem I've noticed lately not lately, all the time. You look on Facebook pages. Oh, look, you know, I'm looking at getting a set of tyres. What's the best ones? Or look, I'm, you know, getting a set of suspension. Or they might name a particular type of tyre or suspension. And, you know, there's a lot of people that say, oh, you know, I've got these ones and that's great. And that's awesome. And that is true. I mean, not to devalue anyone else's experience, but it's only one, if you know what I mean, and you can easily have luck. Now, of course, if every single one was rubbish, I think that you'd hear about it and companies would be out of business really quick. So that's one side to look at it. The other one is a lot of people don't use the vehicle. If you're driving along a flat bitumen road like this, you're not going to wear out your suspension, and you're not really putting your tyres to the test. Now, when you say tyres, depends what for, but this isn't a video about tyres or videos. What I'd like to say though is you need to compare a lot of the same, a lot of kilometres, whatever the case may be. I'm comparing a lot of different Prados, and what I'm telling you is the way I see it. So it's just my opinion. Okay, now the new Prado 2019, it's really not much different to the 2009. You know, they worked their way through. So is it worth paying for a new Prado at the moment? I don't think so, because it's still a 150 Prado, okay? And I prefer the 1KD with the 5-speed auto. It just works a whole lot better. Now, there's things I like about these engines, and I'll get to those if this video doesn't get interrupted by a phone call or something else along those lines. So, the vehicle is smooth, it's quiet, it drives awesome. And when people are going to compare to their old 90 series or 120 series or a high kilometre 2009, 2010 on original suspension with bull bars and everything shaking around that have compromised the whole handling of the vehicle, of course when you go home and you get into your new Toyota or Nissan or Mazda or even Hyundai or whatever, you're going to go, oh mate, you know, this vehicle's great, you know, it's chalk. Of course it is, it's a new vehicle and you haven't messed with it yet. It's got, you know, probably lower profile tyres, better quality, brand new, all the suspension's nice and tight. So that's what we're dealing with here, right? It hasn't been highly modified. It's only done 20,000 Ks. I think just about every one of those kilometres I have driven. So that's all I've got. There's people out there with 80,000 Ks experience, okay? So everything about Toyota's design, I like it. They're reliable. It's stayed the same for years. I suppose that's what Toyota do, and that's what I like about it. When they went to the 150, there was some improvements. It's still very similar type vehicle. A lot of the chassis, the control arms and bushes, a lot of things are very similar, but there's some little changes that we see, little strengthening areas in diffs and changes to the control arms a little bit, maybe the size of the bushes and stuff like that. They do make small improvements, but it's basically the same vehicle. But the 150 always drove better, in my opinion. A 150 drives a lot better than a 120. Why? It's a 7-year newer vehicle. That's what I'm talking about. So the 120, you know, they changed, you know, but the 150 is still the same. What have they done? They've put these humpy things in the bonnet like they have on the 200 series. Personally, I don't like that. It makes it higher and a bit harder to see over. I would prefer you know, a bit lower at the corners sort of thing. You know, it's hard to judge the width of the vehicle, and that leads me to tell you about it's obviously wider than a 120, so it's quite wide, and you do notice those, whatever it is, a couple inches wider, you do notice the difference when you're fitting through a garage or in car parks, and your mirrors just seem to stick out that bit more, if you know what I mean. So it's obviously a bit heavier than a 120. But as far as all the fixtures, fittings, you know, the steering, the controls, in the 2009, and you've got the full size screen for your radio with the maps built in, whatever. Unfortunately, they still don't have, you know, Apple CarPlay. Other brands, Honda and whatever, you know, they've had them for years. I just don't, why are we behind in this technology? Some of the models you can pay a fee and get CarPlay in, even if you didn't have it when it was new, but not the Prados and that. So Toyota, you know, to pick on them a little bit, they're always behind in this technology type stuff, and I suppose all the latest looks, but they do, I suppose, maybe do more testing before they implement a change, and that's why it's more reliable. The engineering's solid, so the car hasn't got a squeak or a rattle, didn't have one since new. The brakes do squeal a little bit, particularly when they're cold, and I noticed that using genuine pads in replacements on vehicles as well. So depending how you drive, I suppose, more, like I said, highway Ks, I'm not so much of a person that uses brakes. It's not a race car, I don't zip around fast in it. As I've demonstrated with driving, I look ahead, and you know, you look ahead for that red light, or it's red, it's about to change, you know, that's the sort of thing I do. So I suppose I don't use a lot of brakes. That'll be interesting to see, depending how long we have this vehicle for, if it gets to brake pads or not. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so that you're on channel for the 30 and the 40 and the 50, all these 1,000-kilometre reviews. And we've done other videos, so go back and check those. Check 1GD. There's a bit of information in the So with the engine, it's a newer engine, so of course it's quieter. It's got hydraulic lifters, so of course it's quieter. It's got a timing chain arrangement, which is a bit different to the timing belt, so that isn't really going to make a lot of difference in the noise until there's problems with the timing chain and guides and stuff like that may or may not happen. We don't know. It's early days yet. This is the thing. These vehicles have only been out in Australia for about 4 years, this engine. We don't get to see them. It's a dealership thing, you know, your cap price servicing. That's what I mean. So this review is going to cover so many different aspects. I recommend you use your cap price servicing for 210 or 240 or something like that, because it's going to cost you more than that to take your vehicle to someone that takes the time to do all the checks and check over the vehicle, someone that knows the vehicle properly. If you're getting it done cheaper, you're just getting rubbish, okay? It just depends what parts they're using and quality of oils and filters and genuine parts or not. If the vehicle's under warranty, because you've got a DPF, and there's a chance you could have a problem with it, one of the best ways to not have any hassles with that warranty claim would be to have genuine servicing. So you've got to allow for that when you upgrade. Say you've got a 2000, you think it's an upgrade. If you've got a 2000 and anything from about, look, a 150 Prado with a 1KD, just stick with it. I always said stick with the 1KD, last of the best. I wouldn't be saying go ahead and change at the moment. If you want to buy a new vehicle, I would buy one of these before I went and bought an MUX or anything like that. Or why would I say I would do that? I did do that. So, you know, put your money where your mouth is. That's what I did do. So I just would like to demonstrate that. But I wouldn't go and sell my 2014 or 15 1KD, which is the absolute best of the last of the best, and the best of the last, and the last of the best. Bada bing, bada boom, bada boom, bada bing. You stick with those vehicles, okay? But if you've got an old 09 and you're going, oh, it's getting a bit, you know, whatever, well, you can save a lot of money by keeping it and doing some work on it and getting to know your vehicle, and you'll know it better. So I would suggest it's still reliable for if you do that out back touring and you know it really well, to be able to work on it yourself and take care of those repairs, rather than go and spend a lot more money on a vehicle. Then you've got to maybe worry about the DPF, worry about how much more the intake system's caking up from EGR, and have to take your vehicle to someone to get it serviced, and worry about that sort of regime where by keeping the old one you can do it yourself, or take it to someone you knows these vehicles really well, or watch his videos and follow those directions on what you can do yourself. And then we've got the recommended repairers, you know what I mean? So I'm not going to try and talk you in or out of purchasing one of these vehicles. It's a great vehicle. I suppose I better tell you the things I don't like about it. The main thing I don't like, now let's just talk about the engine quickly. The engine makes a nice amount of power for the size of it, okay? So they call it a 2.8, the 1GD. It's about 2755cc, I think, from memory. So it's quite a small 4-cylinder engine in quite a large 4-wheel drive. So there's your problem, okay? It does make good power and torque on paper. You can feel the engine makes reasonable power. I can't feel the torque, I can feel the power. It's more of a rever. It's not a petrol engine, but it's more towards being like a petrol than an older diesel, if you know what I mean. Not a lot of difference to the 1KD, but a little bit. I feel the 1KD's got more torque. I feel it holds speed and it's got a bit more pull, but we'll get to the 1KD in a minute. So the 1GD, the best way to describe this engine in this vehicle, it's like driving a Subaru. So the reason I use that is I've driven a lot of Subarus, I've owned Subarus, I've had Subarus as loan cars. I haven't worked on a lot of Subarus because, again, they're good cars. They generally don't need a lot of work. They're not a car you have problems with, unless you've had one, a diesel that's got a DPF, because I've heard about a lot of DPF problems from people. So, as I've said, Toyota are the best. I'm not saying Subaru's a bad brand. You can go for a Subaru anytime you like, go for it. But other brands have the DPF problems. They had them first. They had DPFs out there first. It's more of the software problem and how the vehicle's used more than the actual system itself. It's a bit like saying, oh, but I've got a blocked air filter. But you've just been driving down a dirt road for 1,000 k's right behind the bloke in front of you. So of course it is, right? So it's how you use it. You've got to understand that. Now, I say it's like a Subaru? I notice with Subarus, generally, not always, generally they're underpowered. So I'll say generally always, but of course if you're driving a WRX or an STI, it's not underpowered. But the earlier WRXs around 2000, they were nice and light, about 1200 kilos. They had about 155 or 200, 155, 160 kilowatts of power. The STIs are a bit over 200. They were rocket ships, okay? But if you went into, say, an Outback, they had a 2.5 litre flat 4 with no turbo, and the engine was fine, but they are smooth. This is what you got to take into account as well, and that's what I might say with this 1GD. It's that smooth that the vehicle being new, the engine and the transmission, it can seem like it hasn't got the power, right? But it just seems underpowered, right? It's like a 12-foot tinny. You know, that's a boat for the people that aren't in my language. You can put a 10 horsepower on it, it'll do the job. It might get up on the plane. A 15's better, to me that's minimum. But a 20 horsepower, you're going to boogie, mate. That's the way to go. Once you've got a couple of people on the boat and some gear, maybe a shark or something, you need that power there to get the thing moving, okay? And then you move up to a 14-foot tinny. You can put a 25 horsepower on it, it'll do the job. But you need the 40, at least a 30, right? This is what I'm talking about. You get into the big boats, 20-foot fiberglass boat, you can put 100, 115 on it. It's just a bit, you know, you need to get that V6 in there, you know. I'm talking old two-strokes really anyway, but you need to get that at least 150, 170, 180 horsepower type engine on something that size. And that's what I'm trying to say. This vehicle, the setup is underpowered, and this is a GX, so it's the lightest of them all. It's not highly modified. It hasn't got heavy-duty side steps, underbody protection, a bull bar. It's just got a roof rack. It's got an awning, right? It's going to have a storage system. It's not in there yet, so it's very light. And this is how we feel on road tyres at the moment. Okay, it feels underpowered. Now, don't get me wrong. It gets up and goes, and you can watch the speedo, and it goes up, and it revs, and it goes. It goes all right, but it hasn't got what I believe the 1KD's got. When you drive the 1KD, it's a little bit less smooth and might be a little bit more noisy. I'm not talking rattles. These 1GDs, they make some crazy rattles sometimes too, right? So they got their rattles and knocks going on as well, but it's completely different, really. I will say that it is completely different, the engine. So you got a 6-speed transmission in this one. It is super smooth. It'll be an awesome quality transmission, and it'll probably last forever, and they'll probably tell you it's sealed for life and not part of any service to service it, and that's fine. But what I want you to understand is, right now we're travelling at 110 kilometres an hour in 110 zone. The speedo's on 114 because they're 4Ks out. Pretty standard thing with Toyotas. In 6th gear it's on 1700 revs. It's too low. As soon as we come to like this is alright, it's flat ground, right? But as soon as we get the slightest headwind, or people sitting in the right lane, they can't do the speed limit, I'll tell you. Anyway, as soon as we get the slightest headwind, or slightest uphill, the thing wants to shift gears, right? It wants to change, you know, it doesn't even want to shift gears, it wants to, you know, the torque converter wants to unlock, or a combination of both, right? Just by the way, just so you know, he's sped up now, like, you know, he's slowed in the right lane. Some people, I've said it before in other videos, do they do that on purpose? Do they drive to be a pain on purpose? Or are they just don't know what's going on? Because I slowed down to 100 before and he wasn't there, and now I've sped up again and he's still there. Anyway, ongoing problem. Anyway, trying not to get distracted, but we are driving here, so it's always going to come into a bit of the distraction here, point of distraction. So what we'll do, we'll just back off. I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll just back off here, we'll take it easy. We're back down to about 85 k's in 110 zone, right? We'll put the radar cruise control back on. That way it'll just control it with the vehicle in front of us at that distance. And by the way, that's another story. I'll add that into this video if we get to it. But it's kind of useless, okay? Luckily we can use the old standard cruise control without the radar, and we've got a video telling you how to activate that. But I'll try and fit in this one. So what I was saying, transmission, right, it's all geared way too high. I think at 110 or so, you know, 115 or whatever on the speedo, whatever it is to do the genuine 110, in 6th gear, you are actually down below about 2,000 revs, which is way too low. And when you're at that speed, the wind resistance you've got, so it's geared wrong. In my opinion, two things: it's geared wrong. The gears are too tall for the torque and power of the engine. So the transmission software needs to be adjusted to keep the torque converter locked. It unlocks way too easy. If the engine's got any torque, let us use it. So this is a call on Toyota to remap the Toyota transmission software at approximately 20 minutes into this video. If anyone wants to share it with anyone that cares, it needs a remap because it just unlocks too soon, which is fine, it doesn't matter. But when you understand transmissions, what you're going to understand, that's what's making the heat. And these transmissions are running up around 100 degrees easy, even in cool weather, and they get there really quick because of that torque converter unlocking. The way to keep the transmission cool is to keep the converter locked. Now it needs to unlock at some point. Then you got the next problem. So you go, let's go 5th gear, right? You should be able to keep the converter locked in 5th gear. I can tell you it sits around, so your 2,000 revs will pop up to around about, I'm just trying to remember now. But when it unlocks, it's always sitting around the 2,500 revs, but that's slipping in 5th. When it locks, I think it comes down to around about 2.3, somewhere there from memory. I'm going to lose all my numbers here, I'll probably get this wrong. It doesn't really matter, just trying to give you an example. But because you're in the, S mode, that changes the transmission shifts and it unlocks even easier, right? So the problem you go over to 5th, bada bing, right? And as soon as you touch the accelerator, it wants to unlock the torque converter. Even at 100, 110, slight hill, bit of a headwind. So you're sitting there in 5th gear and the revs will go up, 2.6, 2.7, 2.8 in 5th gear, and it's slipping still. So you go, oh, this is terrible. And if you had a transmission temp, you'd be looking at it going, oh no. So then what do? Well, let's try 4th, go back to 4th. At that 110 or 115-ish on your speedo to have your correct speed, because Toyota just refused to set the speedo correctly. You want to do the 4K out thing, that safety mode. You don't need to do that. Just set it correctly. It'll be really good. And that doesn't mean your odometer's out, guys. We're talking about the speedo needle or the digital readout of the speed, not the odometer. The odometer seems to be correct. And that's the same in most of these vehicles also. Right? So then you go for 4th gear. And you're up over 3,000 revs. So it's revving its little thingies off, right? Over 3,000 revs in 4th gear. And you're going, this is ridiculous. We've got a diesel that's meant to have, what is it? I don't know. I can't remember. 450 Newton meters of torque? You're kidding me. And we can't hold converter lock in 5th. So this is the disappointing part. This is the part that I don't like. So what I'm saying is, it's an ASIN or ASIN transmission, which will be awesome, 6-speed. But I think it's more suited to an engine that's got more torque, and the software needs to be remapped to keep the torque converter locked. I want to come to the slightest hill and the torque converter to stay locked in 5th. And if it changes down to 5th and I'm pretty light on the gas, I want it to lock in 5th, right? And then when we go to sport mode, maybe we need a button there like some of the older cars, economy power as well, right? Where we can choose the economy shift that helps it work in both auto and manual mode. So if you like, there's kind of 2 modes at the moment. We make it 3 modes. We make it simple with 1 button. And I know there's people thinking about different torque converter lockup kits and whatever, but hang on a minute. You just paid 60 or 70 grand for a GXL. Brand new vehicle, it's under warranty, and you've got to go and spend money for someone to modify your vehicle, which may affect your warranty, that if you do have problems with something, which would then likely be caused by that modification, hey, manufacturer's going to ask questions. Hey, what's this? What's going on here? This transmission pan's been off before, or this wiring's been, so why should you have to spend that much on a vehicle and then go and spend more again to modify it to make it work right? Right? So a big call on Toyota to look at the software. There needs to be a software update, a reflash for every previous vehicle, in my opinion. It's just my opinion, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's all perfect, and what would I know? Okay, the manual, we drove a manual. If I had my time again, I would have saved $3,000 and got the manual. okay? I drove a manual, I didn't like the clutch or the shift of it. You know, manual's old school, we shouldn't need to do that. I was prepared to pay $3,000 more to get the right transmission, and the transmission's probably right. This can be fixed with software. But I hope Toyota, I hope customers understand what I'm saying, and or Toyota make an improvement, because it definitely can be improved in my opinion. Okay, so it makes the 1KD look really good, and the 1KD is really good. That's why if you've got a 15, this is kind of like the ultimate of the last of the best. But at this stage I wouldn't be upgrading any 150 Prado. Would I sell my 120 Prado for this? No. I'm keeping the 120, right? If this was a solution, this is great, I'd sell the 120 and this would be the solution. But at this stage what we've got is, we've got a new vehicle that's better than any other option out there if you need to buy a new vehicle, but it's not an upgrade on a 1KD with a 5-speed. That Aisin A750F 5-speed automatic transmission, absolutely bulletproof in my opinion. The shifts work really well, okay? The torque converter holds lock quite well in my 120, and in the other vehicles I drive on road tests, and I do approximately 20k road tests after an injector job on the same run, I can tell you the 5-speed 5th gear holds converter lock very, very well compared to these. It makes it look really good. And once you go back to 4th, you're not revving as much, and it definitely holds converter lock really well. You need a massive hill and some slow speed and some heavy towing to crack that 4th gear converter lock. It holds it really well, 60, 70, 80, 90. The faster you go, the better it holds it, okay? You can sit on 100, right? You'll be on, 2,500 revs or something like that at 100 in 4th gear. So, in my opinion, much better option. The maintenance is going to be better in the long run. If you're going to keep a vehicle, you might want to keep the one without the DPF so you don't run into any problems with the DPF, okay? The Egr system, we know how to clean it. We've got videos on that. We've got a solution to stop it building up again, okay? You know how to change the timing belt. It's cheap. We make it expensive job by doing the big front engine job, doing the whole water pump, the coolant, the belts, the bearings, the whole lot in there, right? You don't have to do that. But if you want to compare, well, this has got a timing chain, so it hasn't got a belt, doesn't need to be changed. But what happens with chains and guides? Eventually they wear. It's a mechanical part that hasn't got maintenance on it until it's worn and damaged. There is some people around, particularly I've heard in the Fortuners, that have problems with the timing chain type kind of thing. So there's some problems there, okay? Otherwise, it's a very good engine. I haven't heard of anybody with, there is some people with DPF problems in Prados, but generally in Prados, they're not having any issues, okay? So if you want a new car, buy the Prado, don't buy the MUX or whatever else you're looking at. But if you're asking me, my opinion, how do I like it? I like it, it's a new car, it's great. But if you've got a 2015, certainly keep it. It's the same vehicle, other than the engine and the transmission. The transmission, I wouldn't say is an improvement. Let's say maybe it's smoother because it's newer, maybe it's smoother because it's a little bit better, maybe it's smoother because that part of the software is better, but the shifting pattern on the 5-speed is definitely better. The maintenance on the 1KD is easy and smooth. I suppose changing injectors on the 1GD is going to be easy to get to. They're not going to cost you any less. You're still going to have to replace the pipes. They're still going to have seats under them that are going to eventually erode away and start leaking. So don't think that you've solved a problem by leaving a 1KD and going to a 1GD. The positive is you've got a 5-year warranty. The negative is when you sell it, we'll take this exit here, there's too many cars on this road. When you sell the vehicle, when it's near the end of the warranty, it does become someone else's problem that's buying a second or third hand car because they can't afford a new one, right? They haven't been as lucky as you, and they're the ones that end up with a problem. So it's important that we don't support the problem too much, okay? It's okay if there's a few out there. Let's help people understand the problem. If it's not a problem, that's good. We're not saying it's a big problem. We're saying it can be a problem. Anyway, guys, that's enough, I think. That's half an hour review, 20,000k review. The car's awesome. Love the GX. Wouldn't go any other way. Good value for your money. Even with metallic paint and auto, you should be able to get one down to about 55. Take off $3 grand for your You know, if you want a manual transmission, get a white paintwork, better off-road, you're down near 50 grand, awesome value for money. And then you can just sort of add on a few things what you need. You can't really beat it. If you haven't already subscribed, we've got heaps more awesome videos, more coming your way. If you got something out of that, don't forget to give us the thumbs up and hit me in the comments. And I did read a comment the other day, someone says, oh, you know, you give us the info and then you don't answer our questions. Well, you know what, you can just go away. That's a good way to get yourself blocked from the channel. I haven't got time for your complaining. I'm here giving you free information. All you need to say is thank you, as most of you do, and I appreciate it from everyone. I do read all the comments. I haven't got time to answer them all. If it's an important answer or a quick reply, I do that. Other than that, it goes into the memory bank to keep in mind for the next video, and that could be in the next hour, the next day, the next week, the next year. So stay tuned. I'm not answering all the questions, I'll say that up front. So if you want an answer, pay me. There you go. If you want an answer, I've got a solution for everything. You want an answer to a question, all you need to do is text me. Hey Anthony, my name's Jim Beam, and I would like to pay for some of your time. I think your information's awesome and I want to have an hour phone call with you. I'll say, no worries, Jim Beam. Here's the BSB. Deposit $200 into that account and I'll give you a call at a time that's mutually beneficial and we can talk for an hour. Okay, so don't say I didn't give you any. What are you going to do now? Complain I'm too expensive? Well, I'm good. I'm not cheap. Okay, the offer's out there, but you probably won't see it because you got yourself blocked. Anyway, guys, I appreciate all the support, and yeah, if you haven't already subscribed, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you got the bell on so you don't miss the next important video, as many people do. And then they're asking questions because they missed it. So the questions are all answered in the videos. We've got a lot of other older videos there. We've only been using this channel for approximately the last year or so. There's a lot more coming your way. As I've said again, and I'll say it again, thank you very much for your support. Thanks for watching. See ya.